Hi children, in the previous class we discussed about mechanism of photosynthesis. So everybody know the mechanism of photosynthesis is mainly divided into the two phases. One is light dependent reaction, which is also called photochemical phase. Okay, the photochemical phase is always takes place in the grana of the chloroplast. So grana is mainly made up with the thylakoids. A stock of thylakoids is known as grana. Okay, each thylakoid that has a lumen and membrane. Okay, in the membrane there are many photosystems are there. In this photosystem, there are light dependent reaction or photochemical phases takes place. And finally, the light phase that produces the chemical energy in the form of ATP and NADPH+. And coming to the second phase, light independent reaction, so which is also called biosynthetic phase. Biosynthetic phase so is always takes place in the stroma of the chloroplast. So because of the stroma is mainly contain DNA, RNA and many photosynthetic enzymes. Okay, so these many photosynthetic enzymes so that are receive the carbon dioxide which come from the environment, and this carbon dioxide is reduced so with the presence of different photosynthetic enzymes and by the using of ATP and NADP, and this carbon dioxide is converted into the carbohydrate. Okay, so the ultimate goal for the mechanism of the photosynthesis, finally they synthesize the carbohydrates. Along with the carbohydrates, they also release water and oxygen. Okay, now coming to the light phase, already we discussed in the previous session. Okay, there are three steps are there. The first one, so there are many number of the photosystems are there on the surface of the thylakoid membrane. Okay, in the thylakoid membrane there are many photosystems are there. Each photosystem that contain or that made up with the many number of photosynthetic pigments. Either it may be the chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, xanthophylls, carotenes, and etc. etc. Okay, all these photosynthetic pigments so that are exposed to the light. So when it is exposed to the light, so they become activated. So which means the chlorophyll that when it is exposed to the light, it become activated. Okay, how it is activated? By absorbing photons, because the photons are smallest unit of the light energy. Okay, when the light is fall onto the substratum, that nothing but it is when I fall onto the chlorophyll pigments, and these chlorophyll pigments become activated. Okay, so when they are activated, automatically they release the energy. In the form of electrons especially. Okay, so these electrons that are passed to the various substances. It is in a first step. Coming to the second step, so when the chlorophylls are excited and release the electron, so there is a deficiency of electrons in the chlorophyll. So that's why the deficiency of the electrons that is mainly filled with the splitting of water molecule. Okay, this splitting of water molecule is known as photolysis of water. What it is called? Photolysis of water. Photolysis, which means photo means light, lysis means breakdown. Okay, so the breakdown of water in the presence of light is known as photolysis. Okay, so the energy is used to splitting of water molecule into the two molecules that are hydrogen ion and hydroxyl ions. Okay, so whenever these water molecule that release the protons and hydroxyl ions, okay, H plus ions and hydroxyl ions, they also release the electron. The electrons are filled in the chlorophylls, because of the chlorophylls are lost when it is excited. Lost the electrons when it is excited. So that's why the water molecules, when it is undergo photolysis, it releases the H plus ions and OH minus ions. Okay, so in the OH minus ions, so they are involved in the series of steps, and only they produce the water and oxygen. So what are the remaining H plus ions? Okay, these H plus ions are also a change of series of changes, and finally these H plus ions are produced assimilatory power, so which is called ATP and NADPH+, that is adenosine triphosphate and nicotinamide, adenosine, hydrogen phosphate. Okay, so these two molecules are called assimilatory power, and these two molecules are product of light phase. Okay, the end product of the light phase is ATP and NADP. So the how the ATP formed? ATP, which is formed from the ADP, adenosine diphosphate, which is reacted with the inorganic phosphate, so to form an adenosine triphosphate. So for the bonding of ADP plus Pi, so these H plus ions are especially used. Okay, as well as so the NADPH plus nicotinamide adenosine hydrogen phosphate. So actually the NADP, okay, nicotinamide adenosine phosphate is reduced, so to form an nicotinamide adenosine hydrogen phosphate by the using of H plus ions. So the end product of the light phase is ATP and NADPH, and these two molecules are called as assimilatory power, and this assimilatory power especially used in the second phase, that is light independent phase, and during the presence of light, so the plant, so which is always involved in the life phase to produce the ATP and NADPH plus. So in the previous session, how the molecules are all involved in the electron transport and how the ATP produced, we discussed. Okay, so in this session, okay, now I'm going to explain about the light independent reaction, so which is also called biosynthetic phase. What it is called? Biosynthetic phase. Actually, this reaction previously it is called dark reaction. So but the dark reaction, which means it happens only in the presence of dark, so that's why, so the name is changed as a light independent reaction or biosynthetic phase. Light independent, either the light is present or light is absent, so in the both condition this reaction is takes place in the stroma of the chloroplast, so that's why it is called light independent reaction. So which is also called biosynthetic phase, also called CO2 reductive phase, also called pentose phosphate pathway phase, and etc etc. Okay, so in these ways, okay, so there are a series of reactions are there. So not only the single step, directly the CO2, so which combine with one molecules and finally they produce the carbohydrate. So which is combined with the one molecule, after that another molecule is formed. Another molecule is involved in the series of reactions and form many number of the intermediate compounds. Many number of the intermediate compounds, and these intermediate compounds, so finally they form the carbohydrate. So just you see here, so H plus ions are produced in the photolysis of water, that is immediately picked up by the NADP to form an NADPH plus. So as well as ATP is also formed. So the end product of the photolysis of end product of the photophase or photochemical phase is ATP and NADPH plus. ATP and NADPH plus. So in this phase, so the hydrogen of the NADPH, okay, hydrogen of the NADPH, okay, so which is used to combine with the CO2, which is used to combine with the CO2. So combination of the CO2 plus H plus ion, so it uses the or utilize the ATP is an energy molecule. ATP is an energy molecule. Okay, so the finally produce the, that is CH2O or C6H12O6, nothing but it is a glucose. Okay, so see, listen it carefully. The NADPH, which is produced in the light reaction, so which undergo or which is combined with the CO2. So these NADPH plus contain hydrogen ions, and these hydrogen ions are removed from that NADPH plus and combined with the CO2 to form an CH2O by the using of ATP energy. Okay, so actually the synthesis is not only occurred in the single step. So when NADPH plus that react with the CO2 in the presence of ATP, it will not produce the C6H12O6. So because of, I already told you, so there are many number of the intermediate compounds and enzymes are there. So for example, the first CO2 which is react with the RUBP, ribulose biphosphate, okay, ribulose biphosphate, so which is a compound. So from the it is in a 5 carbon compound. From this 5 carbon compound, so it react with the 1 carbon compound to form a 3 carbon compound, that is phosphoglyceric acid is formed. Okay, phosphoglyceric acid. So the main enzyme is, it is a Rubisco enzyme. Okay, what it is in Rubisco enzyme. So the first CO2 fixation in the presence of Rubisco enzyme, which is react with the RUBP. So like that, so this phosphoglyceric acid, now it is later it is converted as another compound, later it is converted as another compound, and finally they produce the glucose molecules and also produce the RUBP molecules for the involving of a cycle of reaction. That's why it's a cycle is also called as Calvin cycle. So the detailed cycles that you read in your intermediate classes. Okay, so finally the glucose that is converted into the starch, so here just you simply remember it. Okay, whatever the assimilatory power which is produced in the light phase, what it is, ATP and NADPH phase. So when NADPH not involves in the reduction phase, so automatically they produce hydrogens. So when they produce the hydrogen that combine with the CO2 in the presence of ATP molecule, okay, they form the or they produce the glucose, that is C6H12O6. So later these glucose molecules are attached to, because of the glucose is in a monosaccharide, so finally it converted as in a different kinds of polysaccharides as the plant need. Okay, either it may be the starch or cellulose or hemicellulose and etc, etc. So which is called as light independent reaction or biosynthetic phase. So just you see this video, okay, the cycle which is used for the production of glucose. So actually the stroma of the chloroplast, so there are, what is present, thalcate membrane is present. In the thalcate membrane, what they produced, okay, yes, the RUBP is in a compound, as you see here. Okay, it is in a 5 carbon compound RUBP. Okay, these RUBP that react with the carbon dioxide, because of the carbon dioxide is in a 1 carbon compound. So this carbon dioxide is absorbed by the plants and finally the carbon dioxide is entered into the stroma. Okay, so when they are entered into the stroma, automatically they react with the RUBP in the presence of which enzyme? Rubisco enzyme. What is formed here? Carbon dioxide fixation is there. 5 carbon RUBP and 1 carbon carbon dioxide. How many carbons are formed here? 6 carbons are formed. Okay, so these 6 carbon, nothing but it is called as an now it is splitted to form a 3 carbon compound. Nothing but it is called as a phosphoglyceric acid. Phosphoglyceric acid. Okay, so already I told you the CO2 when react with the RUBP, they do not form directly carbohydrate. So there are many number of intermediate compounds are formed. So here likely, so there are many number of the intermediate or compounds are formed. Finally they form the sugar molecules. Okay, yeah, now coming to the this slide. Okay, the plants are capable for surviving up under range of situation. So actually because of there are different conditions are there in the nature. So very hot condition, dry condition, brightly lighted condition, okay, wet condition, humid condition and dimly lighted ones. Okay, so in these starvation or under different situations are plants are capable to surviving with the help of photosynthesis process only. Okay, so the requirement of the light, dryness and whatever it may be, whatever the factor that required for the process of photosynthesis is varies from the one plant to the another plant. So because of already the plants are also categorized into the different types. So some of xerophytes, mesophytes, hydrophytes. Okay, because of they require the different factors for the conducting of photosynthesis. That's why the requirement of the light, not only the light, other factors that are also vary from the plant to the another plant. Okay, so now coming to the questions. So the first question is, who isolate the green colored substances from the plants? Where does photosynthesis takes place? Draw the diagram of chloroplast and mention the role of grana and stroma. And the fourth one, the very important question, explain the light reaction of the photosynthesis. And fifth one is so which protein abundantly found in the plant and what it is used. Okay, so these are the questions. So you write the answer for those questions and we will meet you in the next class. Okay, thank you.